13 years ago, Tom threw a copy of our divorce papers at me and said,
I sold the house because I'm moving in with her.
At the time, I didn't fully grasp what he meant.
So, Mary, the divorce is already finalized. So just take William and get out.
His words have stayed with me ever since. I was shocked by what William said when he came back from a job interview at a company.
I asked the HR interviewer, "Does your company condone affairs?"
At that moment, my son's face broke into a smile I had never seen before. Apparently, the interviewer denied it.
So I continued, "That's strange. Then why are you still working here?"
Yes, the interviewer was none other than my ex-husband, Tom Wilson. My name is Mary Smith. I'm 48 years old. I work at a call center for an insurance company. We are a family of 2. It's just me and my son, William. We were abandoned by my husband, Tom, 13 years ago. I met Tom when I was 20. I had just graduated from high school and was working as a clerk at a pharmaceutical subsidiary. At 20, I met Tom Wilson, who was 27 and had come from the main office. He took an interest in me for some reason and started asking me out for dinner. I had just turned a legal drinking age and was thrilled to be asked out by a man from the head office. After a few such occasions, we started dating. I ended up pregnant. I was shaken. I thought he would be angry and break up with me, but instead, Tom proposed marriage. When we went to greet my parents, my father, who was still alive at the time, heard Tom say, "I'll make your daughter happy." Back then, pregnancy before marriage wasn't viewed very positively, so we had a simple ceremony. Eventually, our son William was born. By that time, Tom had returned to work at the head office, and I followed him, becoming a full-time housewife. From then on, I dedicated myself to maintaining our home. By the time William started elementary school, we had bought a house with some help from Tom's family. I thought I was living a happy life, but I was blind. As William moved up in school, I noticed Tom was coming home later and later. Having married at the young age of 20, I didn't know what a normal marital relationship was supposed to be like. I never questioned why I didn't know Tom's colleagues or superiors. Looking back, there were plenty of signs that could have led to a divorce. And then, on William's 14th birthday, Tom left us with these words, "I've already filed for divorce and sold the house, so get out." From a happy housewife at 35, I suddenly became a single mother with a 14-year-old son. Returning to my family home without any prior notice, I was met with coldness from my brother and his wife. My mother, although around 60 at the time, was overshadowed by my strong-willed sister-in-law and her outspoken daughters, and so William and I were left to face their harsh words.
"You can stay for a bit, but find a job and get out soon."
High school graduate, office clerk, no skills, but still, as a mother and son, we had to survive somehow. I devoured job magazines, looking for work that could support my growing son and me. Yet, I was still lucky. William was 14. It's said to be a tough age, but he had some sense of responsibility, much better than a mother with a nursing baby. That's when I jumped into a call center job at an insurance company. My clerical experience helped at least with the phone handling. Initially, I was a contract worker, and after a few years, I managed to become a full-time employee. Still, at first, it was an unknown world, and I was physically and mentally exhausted every day. But working there, I realized something. At the time of the divorce, I knew nothing. High school graduate, not from a well-educated family. That might not be everything, but my ignorance was one reason why I was economically struggling. when the divorce happened. The divorce was because of his affair. I should have made him pay alimony and child support, but I didn't think of it. Neither did my mother or brother. Well, my mother maybe, but if my brother had any care for me, he might have at least asked around for ideas. But he didn't. I only realized the unfair treatment I had received after joining the insurance company and learning something new. But by then, too much time had passed. That's why I wanted William to go to the best schools he wished for. Wisdom and knowledge can save you. I didn't want him to end up like me. Now our jobs, salaries, and lives are stable. William got into a prestigious national university in the sciences and even made it to the doctoral program. As a mother, I was amazed. Moreover, he said he would manage the tuition himself. I wondered, he's so busy with his studies, how could he? But then he found some grant-type scholarship and secured it himself. All I had to do was sign as his guardian. 4 years of college, 5 years of grad school. He showed his capability during his studies, attracting scouts from various companies. It's exactly like how they sometimes say, a diamond in the rough. Yet, unexpectedly, what often comes back to mind is that day, yes, the day my ex-husband abandoned me. It still swirls darkly inside me. It was truly sudden. Tom came home and immediately tossed a crumpled piece of paper at William and me. When I opened it, it was a copy of the divorce papers. I don't remember signing it, but my name was written on it, in handwriting very similar to mine. When I asked what he meant, Tom said,
I sold the house because I'm moving in with her.
I didn't really understand what Tom was trying to say. The whole divorce thing came out of the blue for me.
So, Mary, the divorce is already finalized. So just take William and get out.
He threatened to show no mercy if we didn't leave within 3 days. At that time, I was 35 years old. Having been just a housewife for 14 years, I couldn't even begin to think what to do next. So I headed to my parents' house. I can still hear my husband's voice from that time. Maybe I should forget it. Now, it's just my son and I, living fairly settled lives. It's not that I still have feelings for him. It's the frustration at my own helplessness and the resentment towards Tom. Now I know I could do something about it. On one such holiday, thinking I could finally sleep in, the ringtone of my smartphone went off. The number on the screen wasn't saved, so I decided to ignore it and went back to bed. Yet the sound kept stopping and starting over and over. Eventually, a voice came from the voicemail. It was my former mother-in-law. She kept saying,
Please bring your son.
I wondered what she meant, but I decided not to pick up directly. Later in the evening, William came home, unusually dressed in a suit. When I mentioned what happened during the day, he burst out laughing. I knew they'd come for me. William looked in a way I had never seen him before in, said that while shaking and banging the table from laughter, and laughed so hard that he had tears in his eyes. William, what did you do?
Today was a job interview. Remember, I told you, didn't I?
Stop kidding. Tell your mother the truth.
It's not exactly a lie, but
Saying that, William started talking about his day. The interview was indeed real. It was with a pharmaceutical company that had been scouting him for some time. But the problem was the company itself. William mentioned the pharmaceutical company. It was the same one where I had worked in a subsidiary as a clerk.
it's not a coincidence.
William said it as if it were nothing.
By the way, the HR manager who came for the interview was Tom Wilson.
What? You're kidding.
The funny thing is, he had no idea I was his son.
Did you realize it?
Of course, after all, I didn't really need such an interview.
Really?
Yay, really? Because this company came to scout me, right? There's no need for an interview or anything.
But as the HR manager, he must have seen your resume, right?
He probably did. He must have, but my appearance has changed a lot since middle school, right? My hairstyle looks different. So is my vibe, right?
Well, that's true, but
13 years is a long time. Besides, I doubt he even remembered what I looked like back then.
now that he mentioned it, I was so caught up in my own situation that I forgot. For William, too, Tom had become distant.
And most importantly, even if it's the same name, and even if he saw my current address and my education, he wouldn't recognize me as his son.
That might be true. 13 years ago, when William was in his second year of middle school, he was, at best, above average in his class. But after the divorce and transferring schools, he began to study more than ever, so much so that it seemed extreme. Suddenly, his grades jumped to the top. He got into a good high school and remained one of the best among those that took the science classes, and then to a renowned national university, with recommendations from his professor. In his third year, he continued straight into 5 years of graduate school, from master's to doctoral programs. He achieved things I don't quite understand but know that are significant and great. The headhunting came from the companies wanting him from seeing his achievements, multiple companies in the science field. At that,
I was in a position to choose.
William said nonchalantly.
That's why I requested the interview. I had researched and knew he was the HR manager.
I was amazed at how things had progressed without me realizing.
But he didn't change his expression even when he saw me.
The interview was like any other normal interview, except William had the opportunity to ask more questions.
So, I asked the HR interviewer, "Does your company condone affairs?"
At that, my son's face burst into an unprecedented smile. And what did he say? That HR manager.
Of course, he said it's not ethically permissible. Laughable, right? So I continued, "That's strange. Then why are you still here?" Right then, the HR manager's face froze.
William couldn't stop chuckling.
Then, luckily, the executive next to him asked me what I meant by that. That's when I pulled this out.
What he had was a crumpled piece of paper. Yes, the copy of the divorce papers Tom had thrown at me that day.
This is a copy of the document my mother was deceived into signing by this man. What do you think about this?
You've been holding on to that copy all this time. I thought I had thrown it away. I was sure I had tossed it in the trash. I didn't want to see it. I thought I had to throw everything away and leave.
Yay, I picked it up after you threw it away. That's why it's all wrinkled like this. I kept it in a clear file all this time. I thought it should never be lost.
Why would you?
Because it's proof of what he did to you, Mom, and also the proof of the forgery of documents.
Ah.
It's not just that. There are several other legal issues here, like the fraudulent use of documents. Plus, since that divorce paper was invalid at that time, him marrying another woman amounts to bigamy.
Bigamy.
I'm not an expert, so I made sure to check with a friend from university who studied law to see if this could be considered a crime.
A crime. Really?
Yeah, a clear crime. That's why I said it right there. Isn't this forgery of an officially sealed document? And I gave the executive a copy of the copy.
That makes sense. Here's the original copy, so a copy of the copy.
because this copy itself has his fingerprints on it. There's no way I'm handing over the actual evidence. So what do you think he did?
What did he do?
He suddenly stood up and shouted, Are you calling your father a criminal? Then he told the executive that what I'm saying is a complete lie, a misunderstanding.
Huh, I almost wanted to laugh. What is he even talking about, that man?
But really, the executive knew what he was doing. He seemed to understand exactly what I was trying to say. What do you mean by this? He asked, turning the question towards him. You know, there are power dynamics in the company, right? He must have been aiming for the executive's position next. It looked like the executive was assessing his capabilities. First, he kicked him out of the room, then turned to me and said, Did you request this meeting with the company not to join but for this reason? Yes, I did apologize. I'm very grateful for the head office's recruitment efforts. It's an attractive company indeed. But I wondered what kind of ethics a company that would keep such a person would have, I said.
Bold as brass. How can he say that so casually during an interview?
The executive was really competent. Whether you join us or not, I'm grateful you told us, he said. When he had divorced and remarried after a while, apparently the executive wondered why he had chosen another woman much younger than him. He even remembered you.
Is that so?
Yes, Mom, didn't you say our wedding was a small affair? The executive was there among the few guests, as his boss at the time.
Really?
But apparently he had been saying to others, I was the one cheated on, but I didn't demand alimony and just divorced her. And so the executive wondered why he didn't take custody of me. And the executive seemed to have thought that maybe I am that child, looking at my name and picture.
What?
At that time, we were thrown out because you didn't have the knowledge to fight back.
That's true. I'm really sorry. If it were now, I'd definitely fight with a lawyer. But back then.
It's okay, because I know, Mom, you were always a housewife. Suddenly being thrown out and having to work while raising me was tough enough. Hey, Mom, I barely remember him. He was always busy with work, if that's what you can call it.
Yes. Back then, Tom really wasn't home much. Well, marrying me was probably a mistake for him in the first place. He hardly ever took me to his family's home. Only for New Year's or Thanksgiving, and even then, I was just endlessly helping out in the kitchen. And in our daily lives, it was just passing each other, with work getting in the way. He did say he bought a house, but he decided on it on his own, and suddenly we were living there.
I realized pretty soon after starting elementary school that our family was not exactly normal. So, I acted out a bit in elementary school.
Really? You did?
Just an early case of teenage rebellion. So right when I started middle school, I sensed that he had women around him.
What?
I didn't tell you because I thought it would make you sad. But I regretted not saying anything when he threw the divorce papers at you and told you to leave.
His voice was strained. I had never heard William speak like that before.
Mom, I thought I should have something that I could fend myself with, so that nobody would think to do anything to me.
Like a weapon?
Something that makes me indispensable. I thought I could use that to eventually hold him accountable for what he did.
William then said,
I hate to say it, but I took your situation as a cautionary tale.
A cautionary tale. Yes, maybe so.
He was able to discard Mom so easily, and nobody could counter it because you and your family lack the knowledge to fight back. Honestly, I'm also angry at my ankles.
Did you maybe do something to your uncles too?
It's a hassle, so I won't bother with it. But even if I join a good company and succeed, I'll definitely have nothing to do with them. Oh, except for Grandma.
That's good to hear. I felt a bit relieved.
Yes, because Grandma told me all that she remembered about your situation and kept apologizing and crying.
When was this?
After I started university, my cousins from my uncle's side were making passes because I was a university student, which was creepy.
Wow. I can't believe my nieces were doing something like that.
Hey Mom, maybe we should take Grandma.
What?
She's been feeling guilty towards you, and it's painful to see her having to hold back around my aunt and them at their house.
Thank you. After finishing the conversation, I suddenly mentioned something that had been on my mind. Lately, I've been getting a lot of calls from unknown numbers. Let me see that, William said, taking my smartphone.
Oh, it's from his family home. The executive gave me this number.
William spat out and pressed the call button and put the phone on speaker.
Hello.
Hello, is that you, William?
It was my former mother-in-law's voice from the other end.
Just calling me by my first name, her.
William muttered under his breath.
Yes, I've heard from your father. You've gone all the way to getting a PhD, and are even being scouted by companies. To think such a fine young man came from that mother of yours. Surely, our family's genes is to be thanked for.
What are you saying?
William muttered again.
Hey, how about you become our adopted son officially? You're going to be busy and need money, right? It's better than staying with that poor woman. Plus, you're old enough now since you have a PhD, right? We could arrange a good marriage for you from our side anytime. How about it? Good deal, right? Are you listening, William?
I apologize for being that woman. I coldly let out these words towards the smartphone. By the way, did you hear that I was the one who cheated?
Well.
Oh, it's not true then. Since William says he won't let it go, I'll hand him the phone now.
Long time no see. I was surprised to hear from the company's executive that my mother was made out to have had an affair. So, you were involved too.
No, that's not true. We were deceived by Tom.
Calling my mother such names, do you realize you were part of a crime?
Oh.
Unfortunately, it's past the statute of limitations, but your son forged divorce papers to marry his new wife. It's shameful to think I carry the blood of such a person. Of course, I want nothing to do with you, his parents, from now on. But your son will soon be hearing from the lawyer my mother and I are hiring.
You don't want your inheritance. When I die, it would all go to you.
William snorted in derision.
I don't need such things. You better worry about the alimony that's coming your way.
With that, William ended the call.
Did I go too far?
I shook my head vigorously. At the same time, laughter welled up from the bottom of my heart. That's the spirit, William. If you've gone this far, I need to take proper action too. William patted me on the back, telling me that's the spirit. After that, I got a lawyer's office referred by William's friend and decided to pursue alimony. Normally, the statute of limitations for claiming alimony for an affair is 3 years, but there is an exclusion period I learned about here. The act of infidelity is valid for 20 years. I learned about Tom's infidelity from the very man himself 13 years ago. But I hadn't looked into who he married afterward. I didn't want to think about it, and I didn't have the leisure. I revisited that research. Among the issues to include in the alimony was that he forged our divorce papers and then submitted a marriage registration on top of that, constituting forgery of an officially sealed document and bigamy. Since the statute of limitations has passed, I couldn't pursue criminal charges. But instead, it became something I could use for seeking alimony. I demanded alimony from Tom and his current wife, and also added 4 years of child support for William. Since then, my smartphone started ringing off the hook again.
Bigamy. What have you been telling him? You're ruining me. You're trying to ruin me, my wife, and my kids too. Come on. I gave you a good life for 14 years, didn't I? Don't think this will just go away.
So just once, I replied with this. Then why don't you just sell the house you have now? And then I changed my phone number. As a result, Tom, after being attacked from both William and me, ended up paying the alimony, was ousted from his HR manager position, and was demoted to the assistant manager of a factory far away. I heard this from the executive when we met again. It seems like he's a mere errand runner who can't defy a factory manager under any circumstances.
After the numerous crimes came to light, despite the statute of limitations, his reputation plummeted to rock bottom. He was on a path to be one of the company's elites, but now it's all over.
The pharmaceutical company's factory is located far from the metropolitan area. Following his transfer, Tom had to sell his apartment and turn that money into alimony payments to me. It was the only way he could afford the amount we demanded. His wife and children had to go with him too. Apparently, his wife had nowhere else to turn. Having married him at 20, she had been a stay-at-home wife with a high-status husband until now. That backfired. She wanted to stay in the metropolitan area with the children, but that wasn't possible. Her hometown is as rural as the place where Tom was reassigned. It seems she's not exactly liked by his family either. However, it's not like his family is innocent. It's not a surprise considering how they treated me, but really, when you think about it, they should have probably done something with their son, who married a 20-year-old girl not once, but twice. They should have fixed up their criminal son before cutting off their good-for-nothing grandchildren. Well, that's probably why they tried to cozy up to William.
Oh, look, here's a grandson who's actually competent.
But none of that matters to William.
Speaking of which, I heard something interesting.
After wrapping up the alimony issue, the lawyer informed me.
Man, that guy was really raised in the city, wasn't he?
And what of it?
His new posting requires a car.
I clapped my hands without thinking.
At over 50, he's frantically attending driving school to get his driver's license. Both him and his wife.
His wife, too.
Absolutely. Where they are now, you can't get by without a car. For things like taking the kids to school or shopping. Plus, if you want to work part-time in such a rural area, you won't get hired without your own car.
I couldn't help but laugh. I already had my driver's license. My mother insisted I get it, even lending me the money for it. It was the right decision. Just thinking about their situation makes me laugh. Let that proud ex-elite, now over 50, experience the fear of acquiring a license while being scolded by driving instructors as he juggles menial tasks every day. And the next spring, William joined a training program at a different company, finally able to focus solely on his research, seemingly enjoying every day. The revenge was over. So now I'm just going to enjoy myself. It's my time to live my youth, he said. Well, that begs the question of when he might find someone he likes and get married.
Well, marrying young isn't necessarily a good thing, right?
My mother, who I now live with, remarked thoughtfully. Exactly. William had no time for girlfriends before. Now he can take his time finding the right person. As William settled into his new job, we moved to a slightly larger apartment located midway between our workplaces. For a while now, the three of us want to spend our days in peace.